Hello everyone, this is the Essential Guide to Digital Jewelry Design and you're with Eva today. And in this particular tutorial I am going to build a pearl pendant with a little ribbon on top. Before I get started, I just wanted to mention our book, which is available on Gumroad in PDF format, and a hard copy print to order, print on demand on Amazon if you are interested in doing some more difficult tutorials from beginner to advanced. And our packages with finished models are available to download on Gumroad to complement the book. So, with having said that, I would say let's get started. So here in my window, I've already created a sphere of 15.10 millimeters, and this is what we're going to build our pendant around. Now, typically I do a lot of freehand, but in this case we are going to look for something to model after, some or other drawing of a bow. So I went and found a nice bow on the internet, and I'm going to load it using my picture frame tool. I'm just going to draw it out in one corner here. It loads it proportionally. If you don't use the shift button, if you use the shift button, it will deform the shape according to how you pull the photo out or the image out. So this is the little bow that we're going to have. We are going to make it a little bit smaller than that, and leave it just around about there in the back. We're going to put that into a new layer called picture. So I'm just going to click on the image, right click on my picture layer and change object layer. I'm going to lock that layer, and I'm going to go back to my curves layer. I've created here a few layers. My pearl is in my pearl layer. I can lock that or switch it off. I have a curves layer, I have a rails layer. That's if I want to do sweeps or rail curves surfaces from network of curves. And then I have some layers for forms that I've created. So we can delete those dimensions, and we're going to start just doing the basic curves for this knot. So I'm going to just use a rectangle for the center for the moment, and then I'm going to take a interpolated curve, and I'm going to start with the top part of my ribbon, working its way to the bottom part of the ribbon. That's wild mouse. Same on the other side. And I'm just going to make up what would happen if I'm not happy with a point. I just press U on my keyboard and enter. I'm just going to kind of decide how I'm going to finish this off at the back, and we will do the same for the bottom of the bow. So for now everything is just flat. Now in the image you don't see the back of these parts, so we have to fill that in with our imagination. So for instance, this is one whole curve. If I join it, right, that would be where it overlaps the front of the ribbon. And when we look at it from the side, we see that for the moment, everything is just a flat curve, just planar. What we're going to land up doing eventually is we're going to start lifting our points here so that we start creating a three-dimensional object out of our bow, because that's what we want, but we want to keep the back fairly flat because it's going to lie on the skin. So I'm doing like that, and same way the back would stay flat, but the front part of the bow will lift. Okay, more or less the same height as the other side, and I want that to really come out here. The middle piece will pretty much just be, if I go and I do an extrude, will just be an extrusion with a nice bevel. So I'm not going to do too much work on that. But do you think that the top of this bow then would actually have to be would actually have to kind of align with the top of our there we go. We will still correct that. For the moment it's kind of rudimentary. So if I had to come over here and just position that point on this, along this edge of this rectangle, and if we had to take a curve here, or actually even better, if we just had to do a loft from one curve to another, have a look at what the output would be. So that's our loft, and you already have a little bow coming together here, right? And just do a loose bow, and we'll work further on that because we'll then use subdivision, sub-D tool to create some real organic detail in this bow. But for the moment, let's continue with our curves to the other side. So go back and that's the top layer. In this case, I'm going to again reimagine I'm not going to join it there. Okay. Then we see this time we have to move these points down. To the bottom, like that. we might want to add a little point in here. Just going to go to our control points tool. We're going to insert a control point. Insert a control point over there. Bring him down. There we go. Bring it out a little bit more. And we need a lot more height here. Bring this one out. And the same here. This has to come down. And move these points up. Jewellery. Bring this one down over here. We can do that one. We can bring it out like that. Do the same with this. Okay. The bottom half of our bow definitely needs to move down. Okay. And next we'll be ready to start working with the subdies. So we can switch the pearl off here for a moment. Let's look at that. And let's go over to our subd tools. Here we go. So now the next step is to make some surfaces with our curves. And the subdivision surfaces are really great for a project like this. Make sure you've got your record history on in Rhino. And let's go up to our subd menu, because it's not something you will find under your subd menu list here with the icons. But we're going to go to subd menu and we're going to use the loft. You can also find primitives. We'll be needing one of those. But let's take a loft for the moment, and we're just going to loft those first two curves on the one side together. And in my loft menu, I'm going to keep the corners, because I'd like to keep my corners straight here as opposed to rounding it off. And you see we only have isocurves in one direction. We're going to put in divisions in the other direction as well. 3 should be enough, 4 will be too much. You start seeing too many points here. Rather keep it simple. You can even try it with 2, but I like it with 3. So okay. Now at this point, if you're not happy with this shape, it's not a problem, because your record history is on, so you can literally go in and alter your bow and give it a little bit more height and a little bit more difference on both sides. You can bring that if you want to, and do it on the other side too. And why is this going to become important? You'll see in a second. This is nice, like that. It's important because we're going to do an offset of the surface to create solid, to create a solid piece here. And then we're going to put some stones, some rows of stones in here. And if this is too narrow or too shallow, you're not going to get enough height. I would even bring another bit up there, maybe also at the bottom here, this one. There we go, make it a little bit less uneven. There, that's good. It's a good surface for putting stones in. And I can bring this in a bit like that. Okay, so at this point we could just go into our sub-D menu and, oh, actually that's over here in your sub-D menu icons is offset, and it's facing inwards, which is exactly what we want. And here I'm going to put in a distance of anywhere between 0.5 and 0.8. I'm going to make it 0.65, smack bam in the middle. This is nice, it's good thickness, and we're going to build a little rim up on the side for our pave. The back will stay, and we will just cut a nice pattern into the back, but the back will stay without stones. We'll just set stones onto the sides here. Don't worry too much about the way this is ended here. We will still make adjustments. In fact, let's go ahead right now and replace this little piece in the middle here with a sub-D primitive, and we're going to make it a box. There we go. I'm just going to do it from the top and use the shape that we've got here and bring it up, give it some height, just take a snap off. There we go. That's nice. Okay, can adjust that a bit. I'm actually going to make that a bit wider. You see it's already absorbing the fact that your piece is not ended properly. This is and finally we can even set some stones in to the middle piece here as well. That'll look cute. So let's go ahead and let's also create a sub-D surface with our bottom surface. But before that, before I actually do that, let's put these surfaces into our petals layer. There's a sub-D surface. We can actually delete that. Although actually not, because if you wanted to make changes to this curve at any point, you still want that sub-D surface, because that sub-D surface is affected by the curve, and your offset sub-D surface is affected by the sub-D surface that's created by the curve. So you can see here you can actually still make changes. If you delete this surface here and you make changes to the curve, nothing happens to your offset surface. So we keep that sub-D surface, and we're going to put that into a new layer. We're just going to call that sub-D surface origin. I've got a funny keyboard, it's French. Sub-D surface origin, we'll just put it in there, change object layer, we can switch that off. Also, see what I want to do. Okay, switch that off for a moment. What we're going to do here on the back is we're going to join these two bottom ribbons to one another using a blend curve tool. Why are we going to do that? I'll tell you in a moment. So let's grab our blend tool. Remember where your other curve is. Let's go into perspective here. And here we go to adjustable curve blend. That's a left click on the mouse. And just click on the one side of the one curve and then the adjacent side to that. Sorry about my zoom, my mouse is over enthusiastic. That's perfect. We can actually join that. It gives the option of joining here. You can also experiment with the curvature and the position. Position will make it a straight line. Tangency, we'll use the tangency of the two curves as they come closer, and then curvature will use the degree 4, 5 or more, the curvature of the curve. So okay, and we're going to do the same for the bottom two curves. There we go. And there I'm actually going to take the position on both because we want it straight underneath. So, okay, so now we've got one flat curve for our bottom part of our bow. And instead of doing a sub D, I would just do an extrusion. So I'm just going to go to my extrude, make sure solid is on, and I'm going to make an extrusion of 0.7 millimeters. And if it doesn't close it, then there's a problem with your curve. That means it's open somewhere. So best thing to do is go ahead and have a look at all the corners to see where the opening is. It's possible that it's on one of these corners here. If you don't see it, just delete that surface and go to curve edit tools and close curve. And if there was a small opening somewhere, it will have taken care of that. So we can go back and do an extrusion. Solid, yes. Output surface, well, we can output a sub D. Actually didn't want that. And 0.7 is our height. And it's not it. So what is the problem? Our curve is probably not planar. Okay, so going through a little troubleshoot moment here. So if we would need to check that our curve is planar, because as you know, extrude doesn't extrude a closed solid poly surface with curves that are not planar, you can go to transform and hit project to C-plane and just say delete input object, yes. And now we should have a perfectly planar object. What project to C-plane does is quite simple. Project to C-plane will take any curve that is floating anywhere that might not be planar or could be planar, doesn't matter, and we'll project it to the plane in the window, like top, front, right, that you want to project it to, the plane that you're seeing, the Z, Y, or X plane. So as a quick example, let's just draw a circle in space here. I'm going to rotate it a little bit so we can see how the circle is literally rotated in space, as you can see there. And if I'm looking at it from the top, we can see that this is not really a circle, it's more like an oval from the top. But if I wanted to project this circle, this oval, I wanted to make it flat, I would go to transform, project to C-plane. I'm in the top view now, and I'm just going to say delete the input object. In this case, I'm just going to leave it on no so you can have a look, see what happens. And there you go. You have a curve on your plane, on your C-plane, and it is the exact cookie cutting form of the curve that is floating in space. Okay, so next, now that we've projected that to C-plane, let's try that extrude again, and there you see now we have it as a solid object. So the curve was not planar. Good. We are going to put that into the petals there. I'm going to change that to ribbon because I originally was working on a flower, but I prefer the ribbon project. And we are going to do the same thing on the other side here that we did with the ribbon top, and we're going to do a sub D loft. So I'm just right clicking in my command line, taking the sub D loft, 3 divisions and corners. So, okay, now let's have a look at what the other ribbon looks like so it's not too low. let's lift these dimensions up a little bit. It's a bit in line with what's happening on the other side here. That down a bit. Okay, and the same with this curve here. And that should work nicely. And we are going to do what we did with the offsets. And we just right click on our command line and fetch our offset sub-D. Same thing, 0.65, solid yes, and we just put that into our ribbon layer. Okay, so we've still got the original sub-D surface. We're just going to put that in the sub-D surface origin. So now if I had to go change something on my ribbon, it still changes, which is fantastic. So you still got a lot of flexibility on creating iterations. Okay, there we go. Okay, if we wanted to do something a little bit more let's say more fancy with the bottom of our ribbon, in this case we could go to transform cage edit, bounding box, world. I've got 4 points, 4 points, but what I would like is 5 points in my Y axis, and we don't need 4 points in the Z axis. 2 will do, and we can maybe put in 7 points into our X. It gives us a little bit of leeway here to experiment with. Just yeah, because I want to keep the bit here on the picture on the C-plane fairly flat. I don't want it to move too much, because we're going to cut a nice pattern into that. So this is nice. Move that up just a little bit more. See, we could even move these up a little bit. Now it's nice, nicer and flat. There we go. It's a little bit of plasticity. Now we can take the picture and hide it. Okay. Let's take this sub-D surface and bring it up a bit. There we go. Fatter. Looks nice. Nice when there's a nice big fat knot in the middle. And let's put that pearl back on. Let's have a look what's going on here. Okay. At this point I would say that's quite fine, but we want something quite fine. What we're going to do is we're going to create the cap for our pearl. So make a new layer here, call it cap. And for the pearl, it's quite simple. I'm just going to create a interpolated curve. I'm going to use grid snap. Turn it off and do a rail revolve. That should be enough. Okay, let's have a look at how far away that is from the pearl. So we want something that's perfect. It's about 7 millimeters away, and we're going to do a rail revolve. We can have a look. Sub-D has got numerous Rhino tools available already. Let's go back to our snap. I'm doing this in my front viewport because I want to do a rail revolve in the front viewport with my axis in the Y direction. There we go. So there's a little sub-D surface, and we are going to just change the color of that sub-D surface to something not as garish as what I just chose. And we're going to do an offset on that of, let's make it 8, because we want to billion that out of our pearl. Okay, so this is a sub-D surface, but we should be able to increase these edges. Let's have a look. Seems oh, maybe we should look at the bevel option instead. So there we go. Okay, just turn the snap off. Remember, we had a surface. And for that, we are going to create a little stift. The stift will go through into our pearl. This is where the goldsmith will bore a hole in the pearl to set the pearl into that cap. I'm going to ghosted view and see what the pearl looks like inside there. I'm just going to use a cylinder for this. Getting my cap viewport. I'm just going to change this to ghosted as well, and you can use grid snap and a pin of, let's say, 1 millimeter in diameter. So that pin is going almost all the way into our pearl. Then we are going to create, so if we had to switch the pearl off now, this is what your cap is going to look like. Now either your goldsmith is going to solder that pin on himself, or you are going to cast and print and cast that with your object. And switch the pearl back on again. Now we want something to top it off here, something sweet. Actually, what would be kind of nice here is if the cap remains solid, but we have a little cylinder up here that's set up with stones. So I'm going to create another cylinder. Actually, we can just take the one we've got here, use the Alt key on our keyboard and press Alt and the gumball to do a duplicate, and bring that duplicate up, and in our front view I'm just going to scale that up. I'm going to do that. I'm going to set some stones into that, maybe a row of 1.5 millimeter stones in some sort of a pave, so make it a bit smaller and bring it in. So it's really inside the cap. So that will get some stones. Then that's going to hang on a little chain, so it dangles from our ribbon. So I want that to dangle from the ribbon. While we're at it, I'm just going to change this middle piece to be a tad bit larger. Yeah, it's good. We need it to be very stable. What we could also do maybe is we could extend our ribbon out a little bit on the one side. That looks a little bit more balanced. And let's have a look. So let's start doing our stone sets, and then we're going to do the cutouts in the back, and then we're going to add our bales, and I'm going to use the sub-selection tool to just bring that in a little bit the front here. Okay. What's nice with the sub D tools is you can really take surface selection and for instance here, and this is exactly what we're going to do, we're going to add some stones. What I would do here typically is I could do an inset with that's maybe too much. Oh. You could lower that in, for example. You could set it nicely with stones. So each little row here could be set up with stones like that. And then what we want to do is on the outside edge here, we want to add a little ridge. So let's get cracking on that. First, I'm going to create little stone pave sets around this cap. So we're going to take our where is it? ISO curve, extract ISO curve tool. It's going to do this optically in the middle. We're going to need that because what we're going to do with that is we are going to go to our Grasshopper Gold up here in our menu, and we're going to choose gems on a curve. This will take a little while because it needs to open Grasshopper up. So we select the curve, and you can choose to orient on a surface as well. So select objects, then it automatically orients it for you. And we want to bring that size up to about 1.5. Yeah, it's nice. Actually, we could even go bigger, not too big. Yeah. Let's bring the size in a little, the gaps in a little bit. And we're going to drop these below the surface. Why that? Because we're going to cut ridges on the sides, bright cuts on the sides for these stones. So if we go into a ghosted viewport, we can see exactly how close or far they are from one another. Okay. At this point, maybe we could, let's make them smaller again. There we go. That's better. That's a nice number of stones. The other one was not really too few stones. You can add a prong at this point if you wanted to with Grasshopper Gold, and I'm actually going to do that. So I'm going to go with the prong between each stone. What's also nice is that one, which is kind of the traditional pave. I like to make my prongs a bit smaller, about 0.45. I bring the height down a little bit. What's important is that it needs to be under the material, and for that, the nudge. Let's have a look here. And the height 0.4 is good. The nudge, bring it closer to the stones. And bring it closer to the stones like that. That's too close. That's better. And we've got different styles here. Typically I like them when they're rounded on top. If you use the prong tool in Grasshopper Gold, you have more control over what the prong looks like. But for instance, these look quite nice. I'm going to go back and I'm going to do prong per side here, like that. That looks better. Okay, that's good. Let's create. And close that up. Now we have here the prongs. I'm going to leave the layer named what it is because that's how the program will recognize that it's a block instance. So if you want to make any changes with Grasshopper Gold on any of your objects, it needs to recognize that they are Grasshopper Gold objects. So here we're going to do a little bevel on the edge, so fillet edges. I'm going to change that to 0.5. Okay, and we're going to boolean these two objects together, and why we're going to do that is because we're going to take this edge along here. There we go. And this one here. And we're going to use those edges to create our bright cut. So I'm going to bring that over a touch. And the same with this curve. And this curve, because it was created from multiple edges, didn't join. So we're just going to have to join that curve quickly. And bring that curve over here. Okay, and then we're going to split the surface over here. I have a double surface here. What's going on? Oh, we can delete that. I must have pressed something by mistake now. So let's split the curve, the surface with the curve that we've got here. Ah, wait a second. Something happened when I chose the ISO curve here. There we go. Yeah, I definitely did press something wrong. So, split. Let's use those two curves to split. Good. Now we're going to take that inside surface and we're just going to scale it down until it's under the girdle of the stone. As you can see, it's under the girdle of the stone. It could be make even a bit smaller, like that. Then we're going to make it a bit narrower, like that. And then we're just going to duplicate the edges and the border on that. And we're going to use that to make a loft. So just grab a loft from our Rhino tools. And there we go, and on the other side, good, and you can join all that up, and then our cap would be ready. And it's a closed poly surface. Next up is to join. Actually, what we would like to do is, if it was for the sake of preparing it for the jeweler, you wouldn't have to do anything with the pearl, but you would have to join this cap to the pin. So just do a boolean. That is what your cap will look like. We'll add the cutters for our stones later, but let's, for the sake of the tutorial, let's continue. And what we are going to do on top here is we're going to add a little O-ring. And this O-ring must not be too small. So we are going to use the grad snap. A bit bigger than that. It'd be quite a sturdy O-ring. Okay. And we can. It's going to join to the top here. We'll have another little ring underneath. Put that down into the cap. Like that. I'm going to do the same, so we're just going to click Alt and copy and bring that up. Put that with a ribbon. Change object layer. Make that one a bit smaller. I just have to bring all of this down a tad. Okay. And I will actually make that a bit bigger again, because the bigger it is, the better. And we are going to flip that with Alt on the gumball and put an angle of 90 in, and that is going to be our chain. Okay. You could get less rudimentary than this. If you wanted to get really complicated on this, you could maybe make this middle one here also with a little diamond on it. Just put a cylinder and put a bezel set stone. It would look really cute. Or you could use a longer chain in between the two. So now we're going to try the stones on the ribbon. I'm going to go back to my sub D menu. There we go. And I am going to select my surfaces that I want to put stones into. I decided to deselect the one on the corner here, and we are going to insert that, and that's around about, that's a bit much, that's about 1/2 millimeter. And what we're going to do is we're going to select the outside lying surfaces of that particular selection. So you don't want the edges, you want the surfaces. So this is Shift and Control, and we want to extrude this to create a little ridge. So we are going to fetch our extrude, and I'm just going to pop that up. So it all needs to be is about 0.3, 0.4. There you go. Now you've got a nice little space. Why do I build the ridge up? Well, because we've got a 0.7 millimeter or 0.6 millimeter material here, and you don't want to lower into that material like we did here with the cap. We would then have too little material left to set the stones in, and it could break through. So you just want to do a ridge. You want to lift the area. To perhaps add to that, you could even lift this part over here, so it just finishes it off nicely in the front here. You could even bring it in a bit underneath. That way it gets a bit more meaty towards the center there. And again, the same thing the other side. Just choose the sub-D surfaces that you want and inset. It's already the right amount. And now I'm going to choose the surface just around it, that in framing them. And we're going to do the same thing with an extrude. I'm just going to hit the extrude. Because it doesn't need to be too high, 0.3 is good. Okay, and then again bring these surfaces up a bit, so it's a bit more meaty in the center here, and we can bring the inside surfaces down. And in. At some point you could possibly even bring them all the way down around about there. That's good. That gives it some strength. So here we would set some stones, and we can do the same here, mind you, on the top. I'm just going to do that and fast forward. So we just did a little drop of an inset, and I would start setting stones on the surface. So at this point I would just take my gems on a surface. Let's just open this menu up a bit. Here's gem on surface. So select the object to orient to. The stones are small, so we want to bring these stones up to about a 1.5, like the ones we've got on the I'm just going to do a test first. Let's see how deep the stone is sitting inside. Yeah, it's perfect. Now, any of you that are familiar with matrix looks similar. I've never worked with Panther, although Akiyo has. But it's very practical to have this space this warning of how much space there is between your stones. It's very useful to know how far apart they are, because when you work so closely, looking at what you are building in such detail, so close up, you tend to lose an idea of how small these spaces really are. So it's very easy to make a mistake in thinking that there's a big difference, when actually it's so minute that when you finally produce it, it would be a nightmare to try and work within those ranges, within those minuscule ranges of sizes. So for instance, here we can still fit one nice row of stones in. And then there's a little space here, and what we can do in that little space is we can either fill it up with prongs, or we can go and make a smaller stone, 1.3, and I can go even smaller, let's go 1.1. I'm going to have a really small stone there. There we go. That finishes that off. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and do that on the other side, and then I'll see you when I'm... So I've added the prongs using my prong, it's over here as well, prong on surface, prong block. In the center, I'm just deciding what we should do here, whether we should put two big stones in, or maybe a princess cut stone or something on another shape. For example, you could go to your gems here and you could take an emerald cut, and we could use the emerald cut, make it a bit wider, not so narrow. So like custom cut emerald. I'm just going to create it, and then I'm going to scale it as I need it. So bring that up. And put in the middle here. And what we can do for this emerald cut is give it 4 little claws. Something that's fairly easy to do with Rhino, but again, you have really nice tools here in your Grasshopper Gold, so you can go ahead and just create the prongs for that. These prongs are quite good. They just need to be a little bit more inside the stone. The height is good because you want the setter to have that much height. That's what I want to say about the prongs here on the sides. You want a natural look with the prongs, and you want to give your setter as much. So let's see. Yeah, I was saying This would be enough material for a setter, which would be nice for finishing the piece. But for this case in particular, I'm going to do a little render. So I'm going to alter these claws just a little bit more for my render. So I'm going to bring the prong height down because I don't need it so high, and make it a bit deeper so it goes through and doesn't. We'll literally cut a hole through here anyway for the stone, and bend the prong, move the girdle. That's fine. I'm just going to create that now as it is. There we go. It's nice. Alter that a little bit like that. Our centerpiece here, make it a bit wider. And now it's time to put our cutters in. And when we've done that, we are going to cut the patterns into our back of the bow. We've got a little pattern in the back, and we need to put a bell on the top. So for that, we're also going to bring another O-ring up. Here, there we go. Top. A bit smaller. Make this one a bit smaller. This one a bit smaller. And make this one a bit bigger. There we go. Just to alter the sizes. And we'll find cutters under cutters. For this particular piece on the cap, I'm going to use just the spire cutter because we're not going to make holes everywhere through the piece. This is going to be cutting into the piece. So we can switch off our prongs at this point, put off the pearls, put off our chain pieces, and let's just select these gems. Now we'll see, you have a good view of what this looks like. If you switch this off, see that this is what it looks like. You can put the gems back on again. Now what we want to do is we want it to really cut the space that the gem occupies. So we're going to scale it up to 1 or 998.98. Oh, it's good one. Okay. We're going to bring that point up to the girdle, and we're going to make it deep so it sits with a point. So we're going to scale, not that, sorry, spire. We're going to move the spire down, and we're going to move the entire cutter out like that. So depth. There we go. And that's not important, but I'm just going to scale the neck down just in case it had to cut into something else, and we can create those cutters. Okay, now we can choose some of our other stones and create cutters for them too. So I'm going to select this one, and for this one actually, and for the stones on the sides, we are going to use the cutter that goes straight through. So first show you how it works with this one stone in the middle. What I will do is I'll scale that neck out, and we don't need to move the neck, but I want to scale the bottom of the neck. It really goes through here. Got a nice cut through there, and that's good like that. Okay, and then we're going to do the same with all the other stones. So the reason I don't close this window is because it's created the cutter, when I click create, now I can literally just, it's there, it exists now. I can just go and select my other stones, and I can create my cutters for each stone. So I'm going to work individually on the one side and then on the other side, instead of choosing all the little diamonds at the same time. That's because I want to have some control over what's happening on the inside surface here. So first of all, we want to make our scale smaller, lower the scale of our necks at the bottom here, so they don't cut into one another. For instance, exactly for these over here on the side. And I think that should actually do it. Let's just create, and here I'm actually going to close it and have a look. Yeah, that's good. Although, see, I'm not too happy with this over here. So this should be a group. I'm going to delete that group. I'm going to do that again. So we're going to select all those stones again. Let's just switch off our curves layer. It keeps wanting to select the curves. If you want to stop having things selected that you don't want selected, just lock the layers. So locking the layer of the surface makes it easier for me to just select the stones. Select gems. Now it still remembers the last setting I had, but now what I want to do is I want to open up the top here so that it doesn't get stuck like that under the surface. So what we're going to do is we're going to scale up the top. That's not the right part, that's the girdle size. Yeah, I want to bring the girdle size up a bit, and then we are going to lift our stones out, or lift our cutter out of the surface. There we go. So now when you create it, so it's not stuck under the surface, you've really cut away here nicely. It's not just a little slit in the surface, it's really cut away the surface that the stone sits in. And do the same here. Select the gems, and it does not remember that. So the girdle size, we have to bring that up, and then we have to move the height. So it's a matter of watching. Yeah, you will see if it's in line with the stone. So create, and we get. Now the next thing to check is that these holes don't, like here, cut into the other part of the surface, which you wouldn't want. There, everything's okay, nothing is cutting into anything. But here we have to be careful. So here what I would do, for example, is I will just select that surface and I would pull it out so that it doesn't land up cutting my bottom. There we go. See? So that's all good and well. We can show all these objects that we need to cut holes into now. And we have the prongs. We can change the prongs to a green too, just so that it kind of melts in with the rest of the design. We'll still have a look at what this looks like in render view. And what we would do at this point is, first of all, I'm going to boolean a whole lot of things together. So I'm going to switch off our cutting tools, we're going to switch off our gems, and I'm going to boolean these claws to my centerpiece. Then I'm going to show my cutters and start by booliening these pieces together as well. So the center and the ribbons on the sides, let's boolean that together. If there's a problem here, it could be because these surfaces are manifold, but they're not. So let's just boolean two top halves together. So now we've got one top half here. You might have problems with this piece here because it's sitting so close, almost manifold with the other part of the bow. In fact, what we're going to do here with that is we're going to bring it down. We've got a bit of a step here. Yeah, that's good. A little step, we need that, like butterfly's wings. And we're going to bullion that together too. Why we do that is because once we bullion the cutter out of our center, you don't want to sit with these pieces still intact in the middle of that hole. So it's good to prioritize how you bullion things out of your objects. So now we can delete this, we can delete the cutter, and we've got a nice clean cut here for our stone. Yes, that looks good. And we can do the rest here too. So this is all bullion together. I will not bore you with my bullions, but let's just have a look at the next one. So choose that group, delete input. I want to delete my cutters, yes. There we go. Nicely cut out. Prongs, stones, looks good. And then we're going to do the same here with these groups too. And first the surface, then the group, and here we go. So there, everything is ready to bullion the prongs onto. And now we have only one thing left. Now at this point you could, if you want to bullion the prongs onto, it's simple as choosing your bullion tool. Really, if you have problems with bullions, it can sometimes be because they are manifold objects. It can also be because the objects are not intersecting properly. You have to angle sometimes, but in this case it should be quite straightforward. Nothing is really not, you see, didn't bullion. So let's bullion this all together. And one time. That was lucky. That was lucky. Let's switch that cap off. And what I would really like to do with you now is the cutout for the bottom here. And we want to do something pretty, maybe just something very simple. So, how we start is, let's have a look at the back here. We want to turn this object over to bottom. And now I'm going to use my Shift and Control key to turn my view around. It's actually in an axonometric view. If I had to use my mouse and do a pan, for instance here in this view, see you're in an axonometric view, you can render this kind of thing out quite nicely, or do 2D drawings. If you want to go back to the original view, just select it from your drop down menu. We want to create a little cutout here, but it needs to be within the outline of this object. For the bottom half, we could bang it straight through. For the top half, we're going to have to be a bit more delicate. In this case, what I will actually use is an extracted surface. So we're going to do a copy. I'm going to make a new surface here under curves called extract surface. Okay, change the color so I see it nicely, and choose my surfaces. And I'll get to that, but because it's a subdivision surface, you'll see that it's not easy to just extract one surface, because it's since it was converted into a NURB surface, it has now made every single face in the subdivision surface or sub D object into a single face in NURBS. Why that? Well, that we can describe in the next tutorial. But for the moment, here we go. So we have a template here to cut out the bottom. What we're going to do next is going to put on our curves again, and I'm going to use this outside curve, and we're going to inset it. So we're going to go to our curves from objects, or no, curves tools. We're going to use an offset curve on surface, and you can, I think, only take one surface at a time. Yes, it's only one surface at a time is possible, and you can offset distance by, in this case, we're going to do 0.6. That's the magic number, 0.6. Now, if you have a result like that, what you might need to do is try it again. If it doesn't give you joy, then the next thing to do would be to maybe switch off the curves, and in another layer, I'm just going to pick this layer because I haven't actually used it. I'm going to duplicate the border of that one surface, and I'm going to use that duplicated border instead. That's my next, excuse me, under curves, that's my next option, next best option. If that doesn't work, there's still other options. That one worked beautifully, so we're going to do that on the other side. We're going to extract the border, duplicate the border, and we're going to do a offset curve on surface. Wrong direction, flip, there we go, and point it inwards. And now what we're going to do is we are going to make our little grid, and best way to do this so that I make sure that I don't make it too fine, I'm going to create my grid here in a block. I want to offset that one curve by 0.4 on either side. Wait, it's too thin. 0.45, no, 0.35, 0.35 on either side, so both sides. That will give me a line here of 0.7 millimeters in thickness. So if I had to do a little dimension, it's 0.7 because it's 0.35. So what we're going to do is we are going to do a grid array of about 10 of these in our X direction. So we don't need one in the Y direction or in the Z direction. We're just going to do them in this direction. That's perfect. Now if I took the original and now scaled down a little bit, at least it's with the history keeping the shape. And that's the other thing, we want to make it a bit longer. What we're going to do is we're going to copy this by pressing Alt and Shift, and we are going to make the same in the opposite direction. It just sticks out nicely, and we're going to array this as well, but this time in the Y direction, and there I'm going to make it 5. So I'm going to go downwards. If you hear a strange sound, that's my stomach. And no, I'm not hungry. So I'm going to make these, no, they don't need to be that much thinner. So we've got a little pattern here. Now what we can do with that pattern, we can group it, and we can place it inside. Now what I find will be fun is to actually have it exactly like it is here. In fact, it might need to be a bit, it's missing a bit. Actually, no, it's not. It's perfect. There we go. No, it's perfect. Just got to be careful with the corners and edges. You might have to extend something here or there. There we go, like that. So we're going to make a duplicate of this. I'm just going to use my Alt and gumball drag, and I'm just going to work with the side here. So let's just switch let's just hide this, and we're going to hide the surface as well, and we're just going to work with this inside curve here, and we're going to do some trimming. So for the moment I'm just going to trim all this that's on the outside away. It's so fun to make galleries. This is really where it's very creative when it comes to jewelry. So you gotta be careful when you do this. It's okay, we don't need this outside curve anyway, so you can get rid of it. It's fine, you can even just delete it. And the trim option in Rhino is a lot of fun. It's just get rid of whatever you don't need. And don't need that and that. And then that's where it becomes a little bit more complicated, because now you have to think about how this needs to work. So how it needs to work is this needs to be joined. You know, when you these little things need to go as well. So you might need to zoom in a bit. See, I deleted something incorrectly there. Or did I? No, I did not. Did not. That needs to go. 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 Change that. You're getting the idea. Imagine you were cutting something out of a piece of metal, and you want to keep a whole lot of it intact. So what we want is we want to cut these blocks out, so it gives this impression of a checkered pattern. So what we need to do is we need to get rid of these in between pieces. Naughty, naughty, already took care of that. Oh. I don't want to see the points. Just escaping to get rid of those points. And wrong thing. There we go. I think we deleted something incorrectly there. We want to get rid of the blocks. Yes. We're missing something here, but this would be too small anyway finally if it was cast, so we can leave that out. And for example, this as well. This would be something missing here. Do you see it? You also see it. This is a block, that's a block. There's a line missing here. That's missing. This we can get rid of. It's a bit tricky. You have to pay good attention, but this would have been too fine. Okay, join all of that and have a look at which ones are open and which ones are closed, because this is going to cause you problems when you want to do your extrusion. So these are the closed curves. Let's go and look again. Closed curves. The open curves, why are they open? This would be a question to ask, right? Is it because there's double curves? No. Let's try joining one of those. Let's first ungroup and join. So unable to join these curves. Question is why? Is there there's no double curves here. So let's have a look. Two open curves. So let's have a look here. Why doesn't it want to close? I know why. Remember when we duplicated the border of our ribbon? Remember that the ribbon is not planar. See what's happening in the side here. Even I get caught up. See that these pieces here are all flat on the ground, right? All the closed curves are flat on the ground, so we have to select closed curves. They're all planar. We're stuck here with all these curves that are not. So if we take these curves now, and in our bottom view here, go to transform, project to C-plane, delete the input objects. Yes, we have everything flat, and now we join it. We have only closed curves. Hallelujah. I think today's lesson is about transform, project to C-plane mostly. Consider that a quick tip tutorial. And let's open our ribbon, and this is where I'm just going to take that pattern and I'm going to extrude it, lower that down, and I'm literally just going to bang that out of the bottom. Just going to bullion that straight out. There we go. I wasn't paying attention. So you can't just bang that out. You have to be careful because we've bullioned everything together. We have to be a little bit more, pay more attention to it than that. Yes, we still make mistakes like that, even though we've been making jewelry for years. It happens. Really, it does, believe me. Don't ever flog yourself for making mistakes like that. But it pays to pay attention. So let's bullion that out again. Select those objects. And now it should work fine. And there we go. And that looks sweet. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do that with the other side. And I'll see you when it's done. So what we have here is pretty much finished. I just did a little bevel on the edges on my pattern, on my cutout pattern. That's for rendering purposes. Just soft edges look better than sharp edges in the render. And the last final touch we need here, so let's just turn this around, set view to top, is we need one bail on top here. And for that, I'm going to do something very simple. I'm just going to create an ellipse. I'm just going to create, so I'll just use a grid snap and put that into our curve layer. Let's bring that down here, and typically we can use a rectangle, but we use it from center point. So I'm going to use the center point of the top of our curve, making that about 2 millimeters to 3 millimeters. It's got to be a nice big one, bigger. And we're just going to rail that. Just going to do a sweep. So sweep with our rail and our profile. Okay, don't get a shock. It's supposed to look like that, because what I do here is quite simple. I create a gauge edit, and here we just really need 3 in every direction, and we're just going to narrow this down. Okay, it's a bit thick here, so we will take care of that in a moment, so don't panic. So that we've got a nice little bail. Delete that. I can even narrow this a bit more, but what will help with the tube on the inside here, the O-ring, is literally just doing a bevel on the inside and on the outside. I think it will look good. So I'm going to set all of those to 0.5. It might be a bit much. Actually, we can go even more. We can make a 0.6 or 0.65. So set all to 0.65. That's good. You'll see that'll take care of this inside piece here, no problem. You could still put some stones in there as well if you wish. I'm very happy with the way it looks now. This outside surface didn't want to do a bevel, so what we're going to do is we're just going to extract that outside surface. I'm going to put copy on no, and we're going to delete those two outside pieces. That was a bevel that wanted to work but just didn't want to finish itself off nicely. Now I already went ahead and gave my objects materials. I made a metal with a slightly gold color, goldy red color. The roughness never fully unpolished, 100%, just a little bit off, otherwise it reflects too much. I've got a diamond layer, a diamond texture. I've got a pearl texture. The pearl texture is just a paint texture. I should actually bring the gloss up a little bit more on that. And then the floor is black. And assign to object. And let's have a look what our render looks like. There you have your little pearl pendant. Maybe change that pearl to a slightly off grey color. I think that would help make it look a bit more realistic. You can also do a PBR material in Rhino, and a PBR material will give it a more realistic finish. Actually, let's make a slightly pink pearl. I love pink pearls. Could be a slight high gloss finish. And let's rotate this little pendant. Needless to say, I'm saving now, but you should save well throughout when you're building. Lest you lose information. So we can lift this above the ground floor a little bit, otherwise it sits. If you see the ground floor moving with your pendant, just go to your ground floor settings, and there should be something that allows you to set the height of your ground floor, so it's not automatic, because if it's on automatic it wants to automatically position the ground floor under your object at all times. Then one last thing, because we have two lights here, we have a sunlight and skylight, and my sunlight I have put on manual control. I like it. I like a sun that is slightly lower, but you'll see that the environments, and I'm using my own HDRI, but you'll see that the environments are doesn't seem to have much of a impact on my render. Yeah, because my that's why. Skylight. Use custom environment for skylighting. So we want the environment that I brought in, which is maybe just a tad too garish. Well, if you've got a nice HDRI, bring it in at this point. I unfortunately thought I had a much nicer HDRI than I do, but what I do tend to use and I love is an area light. So under your lights, that's a directional light though. You can either use an area light or directional light, and they tend to give very nice results. prefer now. And you've got a nice glint here on the side. Actually, where's our... That's our rectangular light. That's it. That's what I mean by area light, rectangular light. So I draw one out from the ground up, and then I bring it up. There we go. You can see it already making a huge difference. And there we go. Now play with the light. If your stones don't show up too nicely, try moving them in the setting that they're in. Maybe move them out a little bit, scale them up a little bit. Sometimes if they're sitting inside a surface, they don't show up that nicely. Play with it. And I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments, and we'd be very glad to hear from you. Have a super week and enjoy your spring, or your autumn, depending on which side of the hemisphere you're on.